It's time now for the Casey Ingram Show on WSTU. The opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and not necessarily those of WSTU. WSTU does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU. It's time to call in with your questions and comments at 220-9788, 220-WSTU. And now, here's Casey Ingram.
COVID, unexpected expenses, illnesses, there are many issues that can cause your successful business to slump deep into the red. We are here to help, and we only get paid if we provide you a workout. Debt restructuring is complicated. We are the negotiator between you and your creditors. Commercial Mortgage has been in the industry of small balance corporate finance since 2003. Our focus is on challenging corporate foreclosures, debt restructures, equity, and new debt solutions. These issues are often not easy to see or understand when you run a business and are faced with multifaceted debt challenges that include legal action on various fronts. That's where we come in. We never charge a front fee or deposit. We are only paid if we successfully provide you a debt workout. Areas of expertise include hotels, marinas, office buildings, restaurants, apartments, multifamily, condos, golf courses, home builders, and land development, including new and repurposed developments. Call Commercial Mortgage at 772-872-6099. That's 772-872-6099, or visit us online at commercialmortgagellc.com. I also want to remind everybody you can sign up for a weekly notification of who the special guest and topic will be on the show that week, and you can do that at thecaseyingram.show.com. If you don't see that email, check your spam folder. Sometimes it ends up there. So in the studio this evening, we have, once again, it's Casey and KW Miller, and there's so much to talk about, isn't there, KW?
We need more than an hour.
We do. The inauguration tomorrow. And folks, if you want to join the conversation, I watch the Facebook Live feed. KW tries to, but he's not very good at answering during the show, but certainly join us through the Facebook Live feed.
Please do. Yeah.
And call in at 772-220-9788. That's 220-9788, 220-WSTU. So that's ways to join the conversation. So KW, there's so much going on. And the inauguration's tomorrow with our going to be the next president, President Biden. And as we watch here this week, I think one of the topics that maybe surprised all of us is the fact that the National Guard has to be there. And now they're interviewing the National Guard members because they're afraid of infiltration. So you have some thoughts on that. I know you do.
Well, we have a lot of thoughts on that. But Casey, you asked me open-ended questions. We're going to get in trouble here all night. So we put a little note to our Facebook, our group. We said, well, okay. So if the liberal Democrats believe that 30,000 National Guard troops are racist, why are they asking 30,000 racists to protect them from the American people, of all people? It's counterintuitive, and therein lies the idiocy and idiosyncrasies of where we are as a country. Right? We're going into an inauguration, and we've got the National Guard. For folks who don't understand, National Guard members are people like you and me who live in other states, and they are asked by essentially the Capitol Police, Secret Service, and the powers that be to come in and help secure the Capitol for inauguration. Now, I was in the Capitol in 2017. I was at the Trump inauguration. I was at all the balls. I was at all of the private events, and I was at the Capitol during the inauguration. And I will tell you that even with the leftist and we'll call it the radicals acting up in the city and burning cars and rioting, which they were, we didn't see anywhere near this type of a military encampment, not even close. You could walk up and down all of the main avenues. So we're in a really uncharted territory here. And a question I have for you, Casey, is how does that make us look as a country?
Oh, I think it's very, it's terrible. It makes us look disorganized. You've kind of said it before. It makes us look like we're becoming a banana republic. We've always been the shining beacon of democracy in the world. We've been the shining beacon of a powerful country, free people, free will, able to vote, and to have the riots in Washington, D.C., and to have Washington, D.C. shut down. I mean, they've shut bridges down, they've shut roads, hotels have canceled, some of the cancellations.
I canceled my reservations. This is the truth. I had reservations to attend the Trump inauguration. I had VIP set up. And last week I canceled, and because we had canceled in preparation of this, because
Right.
we knew that obviously Trump was not going to be reinstalled as president. And so when we talked to the hotel, we said, well, what are you doing? He said, well, nobody's coming. He said, basically, we're just letting everybody out of their reservations, because not only is the city shut down, basically nobody's coming to the inauguration.
Anyway,
So it's a combination of no interest from the American people and the military encampment.
it is. It's a sad state of affairs. It's this past year is something I never thought that we would see in America, and it's been getting worse and worse as the year has traveled on. And with the presidential election culminating with the riots in the Capitol has just been it's disappointing. And I know for the rest of the world, everybody's kind of had to put in their viewpoints, but it's disappointing to the rest of the world. The censorship that happened is another thing I think that shocked a lot of the world. So we're traveling down a path, KW, that I think we really need to talk about with people, and everybody needs to think about this. It's not okay to censor our president.
Well, we're in uncharted territories on a lot of things that, as we talk a lot offline, I can remember back in the mid 90s in the energy business when I was, doing deals in the former Soviet Union, and I would go into Moscow, as a businessman. And I had bodyguards, and we had personal protection, and I felt safer there than I do now in the U.S. Given the fact that it's just there is no there's no center line anymore. We've lost our bearing. So what are we to do? Are we basically now going to become a divided nation? I remember I said the tale of two cities. Are we going to become a divided nation? Do we have to actually have liberal linen manufacturers and conservative linen manufacturers? For example, My Pillow, as you know, the manufacturer is American made, happens to support the president of the United States, support the conservative movement.
That's right.
Has now been essentially blackballed by Bed Bath and Beyond,
Yes.
what other firms? I think all the major distributors are now basically saying we are not going to carry and distribute and sell anything manufactured by the My Pillow Corporation, which are blankets, pillows, consumables. I'm not so sure that a pillow is a political opinion. And last time I heard, pillows and blankets didn't have political opinions.
Well, what the shame of it is that really people should be able to decide if they want to buy the pillow or not. I mean, I understand businesses can make that decision, but if the majority of people are upset with My Pillow, they just won't buy it. But these corporations are making the decision for us and trying, just like removing Parlor. They're making the decisions for us instead of letting the American people say, I'm not going to support that product line, or I will for this reason or that.
Well, yeah, that's right. I mean, at the end of the day, the consumer has to be, that's the whole point of free enterprise. The consumer makes a decision. I like the price point. I like the quality. I mean, I like something that's made in the U.S. versus overseas, all the above or none of the above. And to say that you're not going to carry it and give the consumer an option is probably the most, insane business decision I could say that as a businessman you would ever make, because you always want to have an opportunity to make money as a business. So why not carry a product and let the consumers decide whether they like it or not? If you feel like you're a liberal and you don't want to buy something from My Pillow, then don't buy it. But you should have the opportunity to buy it if you want. It's just like censorship, in the media. I have right now on this Facebook group, we have liberals. Okay, I know I have leftists. I know I have conservatives. We don't ban them unless they really act up and do something bad. We invite them because I want to hear what they have to say, and they don't agree with me. They're always on there, but they basically come in and they basically just express their displeasure. But we say, okay, you know what? You may not like what I have to say, but we give you your First Amendment right to say it. And that's the difference.
Well, and that's what America's about. That's the America I want, is the one where everybody can speak. They do it peacefully. And it's okay to have a difference of opinion. That's really how you advance agendas, because new ideas can be introduced.
That's
because
right.
you're looking at other people's opinions and ideas. So
yeah, I'm just reading. Not to interrupt you, see that Wayfair and a few other, essentially online distributors have also banned My Pillow, for example. Right now, you also saw that Josh Hawley was essentially banned from the Lowe's hotels from hosting a fundraising event. Whether you like Josh Hawley or not, the senator, it's irrelevant.
Right.
Let him host an event, and if people want to participate in his platform, they'll participate.
They'll donate.
And if they don't, they don't. You can't. So in other words, we're getting down to the situation where the baker, remember that case where the baker said, I don't want to bake a cake for Mr. or Mrs. X. because I'm a private business.
Right.
Okay, that's a private business where you walk in their door and they decided, okay, I didn't want to do it. Are we going to become are we going to become the bakers, right?
Right.
In other words, is the U.S. going to become a baker where they decide, okay, I want certain things and I don't want certain things. I want to allow certain things. Where does it stop? Where does censorship stop? You open that door, it's Pandora's box.
It is Pandora's box. And this is a little interesting because these companies are alienating over 74 million adults.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a lot more people in those households that may not be adults. So it's,
That's right.
You're alienating half of your consumer base. So we'll see how that plays out. I think that can really backfire on them. And censorship in general. Parler said that they're starting to get back up on their feet. So, I wish them well. But
censorship never works. I mean, look, I say it, we're basically living this is a 1950s, folks. We're going to experience tomorrow a 1950s inauguration of a socialistic regime. This has nothing to do with Joe Biden. Excuse me. We had
KW's got a call coming in.
There we go.
It has
nothing to do with Joe Biden or Kamala Harris as personal. It has to do with the ideology. And so when did we go back to socialistic, Marxist, Leninist doctrine? Well, you're going to experience it tomorrow, and you're going to experience it in your life going forward the next 3 to 4 months heavily.
Well, KW, speaking of socialistic tendencies in countries, they're talking about one of Biden's agendas is a $15 an hour minimum wage nationwide. Yeah. And, it's very interesting when you look at this. I feel so bad for our small businesses to all of a sudden have to bear a $15 an hour minimum wage instead of letting the market bear what.
Well, you know what that is a week, right? On a 40-hour week, that's $600.
$600.
Do the math, right? They have the Democrats, the liberals, the socialists have $600 fixated in their head. For some reason, they believe that everybody should earn $600 a week. I'd like to earn more than $600. I'd like American people to earn more than $600.
And they should.
You earn more than $600 a week by being an entrepreneur, by basically building yourself up, building your career, building yourself up. If we peg everybody at $600 a week, that's all they're going to do. They're not going to get out of bed and want to do anything else. That's the problem with socialism. That's the problem with welfare. $600 a week is not the answer for the United States of America.
Well, it's not. And I think it could harm America rather than help. And I'm going to tell you that the pro side and the negative side have referred to the Congressional Budget Office and a study that they did in 2019 for the $15 an hour option. They said that it would boost the wages of 17 million workers and otherwise now earn less than $15 an hour. Another 10 million workers, otherwise earning slightly more than 15, might, I love that word, might, see wages rise. But 1.3 million other workers would become jobless, according to the CBO's median estimate. And then they also go on to say that there is a 2/3 chance that the change in employment would be between zero, of course, or decrease 3.7 million workers.
Yeah.
This is what this $15 an hour. So yes, some people are going to benefit, but a lot of 1.3 million people won't have a job now.
It's going to destroy
socialism.
It's going to destroy the part-time working class of the United States.
And they're going to have to depend on the government.
That's right. And so let me give the viewers an example. If you put everybody on, look, it could be $14 an hour, it could be 16. Let's call it 15. If you put everybody in the, we'll call it the hospitality industry, hotels, restaurants, bars on $15 an hour, $600 a week, $2,400 a month if they work 40-hour weeks. Essentially, you're making them salaried employees, and then you basically put healthcare and all of the payroll taxes on top of the entities. You're going to become like Europe. And so when you go to Europe, we don't tip. Okay, I lived over there, so I can tell you we don't tip because the waiters and waitresses make a small salary. So you're going to take people who make. I can tell you right now, I know bartenders that make $100,000 a year. Waiters, great restaurants. They make serious money. But if you put $15 an hour on them, they're not going to be getting tipped because people are going to say, why am I going to tip you? You're getting, because the food bill and the liquor bill and the cost to basically have that meal and those goods are going to be high. And I know that you're getting a salary and you're getting welfare and you're getting social medicine and other things. Well, why would I tip you? I would rather be on a incentive payment scheme than a minimum wage that basically costs me my salary, my income longer term.
And Ray brings up a really good point. Ray, our engineer. Yay, Ray.
Yay, Ray. We got Ray here. We got
Ray it is. So he says, wouldn't more part-time jobs be offered rather than full-time workers? And I think that is exactly what would happen.
That's right.
Companies are going to have to cut somewhere, and it might be hours.
Well, look, let's call it what it is. Okay, I'm not gonna sugarcoat the pig here. The liberal left has basically destroyed over 50% of the small businesses in the United States across the board. So now if they come back with a $15 mandate for businesses that are basically struggling to survive, the other half are gone. They're not coming back because they don't have the capital to rebuild. Basically, you're going to destroy what's left of the small business. Why is that important, Casey? Because 50% of the small businesses in the U.S. employ our economy. Okay. I mean, excuse me, our small businesses, I said that backwards. Our small businesses employ 50% of the U.S. Small workers.
Small businesses are the largest employer in the
and we're
United
talking,
States.
500 employees down. In some cases, you could have 1,000. So you're basically going to destroy the economy, and you're basically going to do what? Create a permanent need for socialized benefits.
Right.
Okay. So we're going to basically look. So that's what they want. They want to basically increase to $15 an hour, not because of the goodwill of their heart, because they know in 2022, 2023, they're going to have to keep coming back to the table for what? Social spending.
And the more people you have dependent on the government, the more they're going to keep that party in power.
Social spending leads to what? Dependent voters. Dependent voters do what? Are brainwashed to vote liberal because that's all they know. They want a handout.
That's absolutely right. And I just want to share a story here when we talk about socialism. And it's from my mom, who I'm sure is listening up from Indiana. Her
Hoosiers.
Yeah, the Hoosiers. The Hoosiers. Although she's not a Hoosier, she's a Spartan. She
all right.
Grew up in Michigan. But her grandfather and grandmother came here from Russia separately. They met here in the United States. And her grandfather always said, Russia at one time was a really great place to live. And what happened is a little at a time, their rights were taken away. And it was so small that everybody's like, oh, it's no big deal. It's for the good of the people. And then all of a sudden, one day they woke up and they had no rights and the government had all the power. Yep. And that's where they had literally escaped the United States. My grandmother, if I can say her story real quick, she was 16 when she came to the United States, if you can imagine. Mm-hmm. She was the oldest child and they didn't have enough food for the family. So she left to go to the United States. She sacrificed at 16, did not speak any English so that the rest of the family could survive. That's socialism, folks. Yeah. And that story is repeated millions of times. It is. To build this country. My mother is, her family's from the Canary Islands in Spain. So I've got Spanish blood in me. My father's family is from Germany, Eastern Germany, now regular Germany. But at the end, they came for a better life. Yes. They came for a better way of life. Yes. Yeah. And there was something too. I saw a Forbes article. I thought I brought it with me. I didn't, but it was a Forbes article that came out. And I wish I could remember the gentleman's name. I think it was Reichfelder, had said something that if Trump hadn't gave all those tax cuts in 2017, each American could be getting a $1,875 stimulus check. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. Mm-hmm. Trump had all those tax cuts. Yeah. Our wages were going up.
That's right.
For the first time. We were bringing home more money in our pocket before COVID. Yeah. So those tax cuts benefited working families across the nation. And now we're going to sit there.
It's exponential. It's not one for one. That's where the, you get the pundits on MSNBC, CNN, and all these, liberal stations. And they go, well, they try to take, a number divided by another number and say it's one for one. It's not one for one, because when you employ business, when you employ people, you employ more than one person. You're employing a family, okay? Right. Or you're enabling a family who then spends on other things. So it's a multiplier effect. We call it a force multiplier. And that's where they understand, they don't understand that if you say, okay, we've got $500 billion that's going out the door, and we just divide that by the population, we could have given that away. Right. That doesn't work that way. It doesn't. That math is 1 + 1 = 3. Right. They haven't figured that out yet. We're trying to get them there, though.
Fuzzy math, as Bush would say. Definitely. So it is. It's just one of those things that there's so much to watch out for as we move into the next segment of our nation, the next 4 years as we keep going down the line. And one thing we're doing this show for is hopefully holding conservatives to an agenda to make sure we're electing conservatives. That's right. To make sure that they're voting correctly to keep this nation a great nation that it is today.
Absolutely.
And, how are we going to do that, KW? I mean,
well, look, we're going to talk about that. So here's the segue. I'm not supporting any money going into the Republican National Committee, the RNC. I'm not supportive of anybody giving money to the local state Republican parties. I am not supportive of anybody giving money to the local Republican executive committees in each county, in each state. I'm supportive of us basically going back to basics and vetting picking and vetting candidates and giving those candidates and supporting those candidates going into 2022. So we're going to talk more about how we're going to basically strip the Republican liberal establishment of their funding, and we're already on that. And that may sound harsh, but it's really not harsh, because the reality is, when you're promoting liberals and you're promoting rhinos, why would you, as a hardworking American, give them a dime? Okay, they're already on their campaign now, and this will maybe be a segue for us to basically prepare the American people to do what? To go back and do the same old thing, right? Essentially, you've got to vote R, and R is better than a D in 2022, meaning whoever they put up, whether it's a liberal, a rhino, or whatever you want to call them, the voters have to vote for them. And number two, look, you're going to do what we say, no matter what, because we are in control here. Well, here's the segue. The Republican Party doesn't exist. Number two, the Republican Party is in zero control of this country. Number three, they control nothing. Okay. 100 million people want change. They're in control. Okay. We'll talk about that.
Agree 100%, KW. There are 100 million people that want a different direction for this country.
That's right.
And, you've talked about going back to business as usual now with President Biden going to be inaugurated tomorrow. And that is a really good way to put it, because over the last few decades, it doesn't seem to exactly matter who's been in power. There's
That's
just kind of been an agenda moving forward, a one world order, if you will. We had NAFTA back in the 90s that was absolutely disastrous to our manufacturing, and I have to praise Trump. I've got a list here when we get back from the break of a lot of the things that he accomplished, and one of them was to help bring back manufacturing to our great nation, which is also great paying jobs.
That's right. Well, look, it was between NAFTA and China. So look, people didn't
Mexico before China.
Right. But people didn't understand, while they were focused on Mexico, the essentially the pundits were basically busy offshoring, our industry for the last 20 years.
That's right.
And it's come home to roost. And so now they've realized, my goodness, we can't even make penicillin in this country. We have no pharmaceuticals.
That was a shocking thing through COVID, to find out that our pharmaceuticals are all made overseas.
Right.
And to think that we're dependent on that supply chain, it's frightening. I mean, we have all the natural resources. Our country is so wonderful. We have everything, including borders protected by water to the east and west. And yet, we've made ourselves so dependent on other countries.
It's only one example. We'll talk about that when we get back.
We're going to take a short break, so we'll be right back.
All right, great.
And on Facebook Live, we're going to keep going. Stewart Downtown Auction. Love auctions, so do we. Auctions are a great way to get a good deal and see items that you never knew you even wanted. Come explore our inventory of estate items and bid on your treasure and leave with a fun memory. When you are serious about selling, so are we. Associate Auctions and Stewart Downtown Auction provide a complete solution to real estate and personal property assets throughout the Treasure Coast. Real auctions, real results. Associate Auctions and Stewart Downtown Auction in Stewart, Florida. Call Casey Daniel, the auctioneer, 772-291-2806. That's 772-291-2806. COVID, unexpected expenses, illnesses, there are many issues that can cause your successful business to slump deep into the red. We are here to help, and we only get paid if we provide you a workout. Debt restructuring is complicated. We are the negotiator between you and your creditors. Commercial Mortgage has been in the industry of small balance corporate finance since 2003. Our focus is on challenging corporate foreclosures, debt restructures, equity, and new debt solutions. These issues are often not easy to see or understand when you run a business and are faced with multifaceted debt challenges that include legal actions on various fronts. That's where we come in. We never charge a front fee or deposit, and we are only paid if we successfully provide you a debt workout. Call Commercial Mortgage at 772-872-6099 or visit us online at commercialmortgagellc.com. Don't forget that llc.com. So we are back after our break, and it's good to
I got a question here. It's a great question.
Let's go,
So we'll get to it. Yeah. So we have a question from a caller.
We have a caller as well, but let's go
Okay.
ahead with your
Good,
question.
good.
We'll take our caller.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Al, so how are you doing this evening, Al?
Well, I'm doing good, and KW got me to call in to dial the phone. I've been watching you for a while.
Well, Al, we are so glad you called in. Al is actually going to be a guest on the show next
All
week
right.
when we're talking about
Okay.
COVID. So, Al, I know you are a real great patriot and conservative here in the area. What's on your mind?
Well, this minimum wage, and the minimum wage is not the real problem. I mean, we're talking about. I can't believe under referendum that it passed in Florida, but at least in Florida, it's 6 years
5 years.
to be implemented.
I think it's 5 years. Yeah, it's 5 years. Yeah, staged in. Yeah.
But starting in September, so it's
Yeah.
really about we got a dollar a year basically for the next 5 years, with $10 in September. Well, when I first saw this that part of the stimulus package, it wasn't clear, and this is Biden's proposed $1.9 trillion new stimulus package, includes a suggestion that minimum wage should be raised to 15% or $15 an hour, quote, immediately. And not only that, but if you read through it, and you mentioned this, the tipped minimum wage and the special needs minimum wage or handicap minimum wage is also on the target. I went to the Bureau of Labor Statistics to find out just real quickly how many people fall into that category. And according to the BLS, 156 million people have jobs.
Al, let me interrupt you for 1 minute. For our viewers on Facebook, Al's just giving us a question about the minimum wage. I know you can't hear us, so just bear with us and we'll answer the question for everybody.
Yes, we're talking about the minimum wage and also the tipped minimum wage.
That's right, yeah.
You said 156
I'll
million
make it
people.
quick and give it. I didn't realize they couldn't hear.
Yeah.
66 million out of those 156 million jobs will be affected.
66
and how
million.
you think that is not going to affect prices? People believe. I've read people that actually believe that this will not affect prices.
Right. Well, that's my point.
Things are just going to go along the way they are.
Right. Well, Al, it's okay. So the question to our viewers is essentially, how can the minimum wage adjustment, if we do an immediate push to $15 in this country, not affect prices of the consumer goods? And the reality is, it will affect prices because producers pass prices on. Okay. Employers pass cost on. And for anybody in any administration to think, and this is me speaking as a businessman now, that there would be no ramification to this country's economy in a catastrophic way to the negative, they have fundamentally, I want to say, lost their mind. They never had a mind, because it's called economics 101. It's called cost pass through. If you charge me another $5 to employ Mr. X, I'm going to charge my customer that $5 in whatever I sell. That just comes down to math. And in Al, if it's 150 million people, and Al thinks, what is it, 66 million are going to be affected?
Well,
Is that
Out of the
according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 66 million people are currently in jobs that pay less than $15 an hour,
right?
Or an equivalent salary.
Right. So Al's basically saying that according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, that 66 million people are essentially going to be affected. I don't know if it's 66, but it's going to be a lot of people, and it's going to be devastating for this economy. That's my professional view.
Well, I will tell you this, and you mentioned it. If they do away with the tipped minimum wage and raise those folks to 15, the businesses, I mean, for those of you who don't know, I run Archie's up here in Fort Pierce, and
That's
it's a restaurant and a bar on the beach.
A really
This
fun
will
one.
be devastating.
Right.
I mean, after everything that's happened with COVID and the debt that we have run up, although the government has done a pretty good job of alleviating some of that problem, we can't handle a 300% increase in salaries.
Yeah.
Al is the
That's simple.
owner of Archie's up in Fort Pierce. I know everybody locally knows that, the great restaurant. And he was just saying how devastating $15 an hour minimum wage would be on his business. And he's not the only one.
That's right. Well, that story is going to be replicated in the millions across the U.S. And for everybody who watches the news, who reads the paper, if there's anybody who reads paper anymore, or just goes down to the corner and you see the small businesses shut, think about the ones that have survived and are barely hanging on by a thread. Basically, $15 an hour is going to put them out of business. That's the bottom line. So are the liberal Republicans, or they're not even Republicans, are the liberal rhinos going to stand up for this country? I don't have much faith in them. Okay, that's why we're here, frankly. But that's something that's going to have to be addressed. So stay tuned.
Yeah, this topic we're really going to be watching here in the future, because it is so important to all of our small businesses. And, something that hasn't been brought up with the minimum wage is that's a part-time job for high school students
and college students.
Exactly.
College students. They're going to be priced out of jobs.
That's right. Well, look, I mean, I'll give you an example. I worked through high school. My mom was a single mom, 3 kids. I worked through high school. I went through college. I put myself through college. And when I got to work on Wall Street, I worked at night part-time because I wasn't making enough money to pay, even back in the mid 80s, for my apartment and everything that it cost to live in New York City. Can imagine that 4 times today. So the ability to work part-time on a tip basis, essentially, because we made nothing on a minimum wage basis. Right. All the money was tips, gratuity. And that allowed me to survive. If you take that away from millions of part-time workers, whether they're students or professionals who are just starting their career, who need to make some extra money, or law enforcement who moonlight, for example, they can't make money, as firemen and firefighters, they work part-time. You're going to destroy the secondary economy of this country, not just the primary, not just the employers like the Archies. You're going to destroy the secondary economy, which people have jobs elsewhere that are working part-time in these industries. Is that a fair statement, Al?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've never understood the motivation behind making certain jobs illegal. And at this rate, what you've essentially done is illegalized any job that pays less than $30,000 a year. It's insanity.
Yeah. Well, look, this is a complicated subject. You raise a good point. We could spend all night on it.
We could.
But I know you're going to be on the show next week, so let's hold this for next week, and you can bring this up with KC. But Al, thank you very much for calling in, and it's great to hear from you. And for all of our viewers, Al is a patriot. He runs Archie's in Fort Pierce. It's a great place down on the beach. I encourage everybody to go there. I know we have a lot of viewers from around the country. You can't go there. For those in the St. Lucie County and Martin County, take a ride up there. It's worth your time.
Archie's is a great place to go. And next week, we're going to be talking a lot about COVID and how it's impacting the businesses and the shutdowns across the country. So Al has been doing a lot of research. So be sure to tune in next week. He's going to have a lot of good information for us. And it's very important. So
thanks, Al.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Cheers.
See you next week.
All right. Let's talk about the Republican Party, can we?
Let's talk about the Republican Party, because I'm thinking with this inauguration, one of the focus that you and I are going to be looking at here in the future is holding the elected officials to our conservative Republican values. It's going to be very key, because right now, as I see it, we have a lot of Republicans that are running the other way from Trump. All of a sudden, he caused these riots, and they're kind of operating by the polls.
Isn't that familiar, right?
It does sound familiar.
Yeah.
And what they don't realize is over 74 million people really liked what Trump did.
That's right. Well, look, I get this question from my viewers and from really everywhere, which is, what is the Republican Party? And we're going to continue to dive deeper into this, as we go forward. Each show, we're going to dig deeper and deeper and deeper. And we started off, I think, last week by saying, look, at the end of the day, the Republican Party really doesn't exist as people think about it in their mind. Okay. Yeah, there may be some charter, there may be some little thing that, a box. But at the end of the day, if you aren't what you preach, you don't exist. So if you aren't a conservative organization and you don't promote conservative candidates for this country, then you are not technically abiding by your own quote unquote bylaws, rules, regulations, or even your own, rhetoric, shall we say, right? And you started to see that when you had Mike Willis in here and he talked about the local St. Lucie County REC, how much of a disaster they are. That sentiment is across the country. Now, I don't want to put every single REC in a box. Okay. I've been invited because by many RECs across Florida, they've picked this up and they said, wait a minute, we are not like St. Lucie County. We're not a bunch of liberals and we're not putting liberals up for candidate. We are patriots and we want you to come talk to us because we don't subscribe to what you're seeing in Martin County, St. Lucie County, Broward County, Palm Beach County, and Dade County. Those are our 5 problem counties, okay, in the state of Florida right now. Those are the big problems. We have high density, high population, and we have a hard time holding the line. But why can't we get conservatives elected in Dade County? Why can't we get conservatives elected in Broward and Palm Beach County? Well, we have to look in the mirror, okay? And the mirror is the party, and the party is failing. So when we talk about the party, people keep saying, what are we going to do? What are we going to do, KW? We got to start right here, okay? Because it's easy for us all to say, let's go attack Congress, let's go attack the Senate. Yeah, we no doubt we sent the village idiots. My people know that. But we've got to basically look at what we're doing in our backyard, because if we don't start here, we will never get to Washington and get to the bigger issues. Does that make sense?
Everything starts locally. Everything starts locally, in my opinion. If you don't start with your home base, you can't get to Washington, as you were just saying. So, and honestly, I think that local officials are every bit as important as anything federally, because they are passing local regulations that impact your businesses and how you live your life. Mask mandates for local, for example.
Well, let's assume that the Biden administration does move forward with what they're proposing, which is basically institute a national mask mandate, much more strict than what the county commissioners of Martin County, Palm Beach County, Broward County, for the folks, or excuse me, even St. Lucie County have put in place, that people did not like. Well, okay, how do you feel about that? Well, the reality is, when you look back at the last year, a lot of the activism was centered locally. People went into the county commissioner chambers and voiced their opinions.
That's right.
They were not happy with how these people voted, or how they were basically making unilateral decisions on, how they were supposed to act as U.S. citizens. Okay, where they felt that they were being pushed into a liberal box of liberal thought process when this country was based on an independent mindset. You take care of yourself, you take care of your own family. Why do I have to do what you say? That's going to be a big issue, not only when it comes to masks, it's going to be a big issue when it comes to the future of this country, because right now, socialism, big brother, government paying for everything and telling you what's good for you and what's not good for you is not going over well with not 75 million people, Casey, it's well over 100 million people. So remember, you got independents and you got moderate Democrats who do not subscribe to this socialistic model that's being jammed down their throat. And that's why we're here.
And that's why it's going to be extremely important to really participate in the primaries. We've talked about that before. The primary turnout for voters is so low every year. It's shameful. And that's who is deciding, the primary voters, who you're going to vote for in November in the general.
That's right. Well, and the problem that goes back to look, remember, we're not here to solve the Democrat Liberal Party problems. Okay. I have told, I will say to everybody, I have friends who are liberals and Democrats. I've said, go clean up your own mess, because you've got problematic candidates as well. Okay. Go clean up your own mess, come back to the table and tell me you got a moderate that we can deal with. But in the meantime, let's deal with the conservatives who have been sold out by the Republican Party. The Republican Party essentially has become liberalized at the leadership level, not the base. The base is the Tea Party has become the party of what we call Trump. The Tea Party has become the conservatives. Okay, that's the reality. But the leadership at these local Republican executive committees and these RPOFs have become liberal. And they have basically promoted liberal candidates who have gone into the state house, the state Senate, the Congress, the Senate, and county commissioners, and disappointed us time and time again. So what's the definition of insanity? doing the same thing over and over again. Therefore, we've got to get into the primaries and not just get involved. We have to select the candidates, right? Have to select the candidates, and then we have to put our money behind the candidates. And we have to basically say, we're not paying attention to what the RECs are promoting. We're promoting the right conservative candidate, man, woman, it doesn't matter, per individual opportunity for a public office. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I'm thinking coming up probably very quickly is going to be a vote on impeachment for President Trump. What do you think about the Republicans, starting with McConnell, that agree with impeachment?
Well, McConnell came out. We knew it was coming. I mean, he had to make a statement because, he basically, he's the minority Senate leader now, but he still has, essentially 50% of the Senate under his belt right now, assuming they all toe the line, which is a big assumption today because now, the Republicans are not a conservative base and not conservative body. They are every man or woman for themselves. And how do I make sure I cover my own proverbial booty? And so, we need to make sure that McConnell, represents the base. The problem with McConnell is he is very much part of the upper echelon of politics, just like Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer. They're at the top. They take money from the same people. They're in bed with the foreign governments. They're in bed with all the special interests, with the defense contractors. So McConnell would like nothing better than to get rid of Donald Trump, and make him a non-factor in the Republican Party. The problem with that is he has no chance of doing that. So even if they impeach Trump, Trump still essentially runs 100 million people by virtue of a movement. He's a figurehead. So the liberals on my page who go crazy and say, well, we're all Trumpers. No, we're not Trumpers. It's about conservatism. It's about the American Constitution. It's about preserving what our rights and freedoms are. And it's about movement for change. That's what it's about. 100 million people are about change.
They're about change, and 100 million people were supportive of Trump. Over 74 million did vote for him.
That's right. Well, let's be clear. Do we really believe 74, or was it more? Right. I don't know the answer, but you have to assume that if they're telling us 74, 75, it's higher. But either way, when you add the independents and the moderate Democrats in there, we know that they don't subscribe to the radical policies of the left and the liberals, and they don't subscribe to the liberal people that have put into the Republican Party. They didn't sign up for me voting for somebody to go vote against the Second Amendment. We didn't sign up for me voting against to go shut down the First Amendment and take money from tech. Well, that's what the Republicans, in name only, are doing. They're riding that coattail, and we keep putting them in office, and that's what we need to change.
We do. I wish we had term limits. We do not. Let me talk a little bit about some of the accomplishments that Trump has done with his term in office.
You have 21 pages there?
I don't. He has 21 pages on whitehouse.gov, Trump administration accomplishments.
Double space, triple space.
in 8-point font. So, but no, it is single spaced. It's huge. But there are a lot of accomplishments, and this is where this is why we had a protest at the Capitol, honestly. People finally felt that they had a leader who was representing American workers, just the American people. And one thing that they loved about Trump is you may have not liked his rhetoric or his tactics, but he said it how he saw it.
That's right.
And they felt like he was fighting for them. America gained 7 million new jobs, more than 3 times government experts' projections. And this is before COVID. Middle-class family incomes increased nearly $6,000, more than 5 times the gains during the entire previous administration. The unemployment rate reached 3.5%, the lowest in a half century. Achieved 40 months in a row with more job openings than job hirings. More Americans reported being employed than ever before, nearly 160 million Americans. Jobless claims hit a 50-year low. The number of people claiming unemployment as a share of the population hit a lowest on record, and incomes rose in every single metro area in the United States for the first time in nearly 3 decades. And more importantly, unemployment rates for African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian, Native, and veterans, individuals with disabilities, and those without a high school diploma all reach record lows. Unemployment rates.
Well, and what do you do when you're a liberal and you're a Democrat and you are a socialist and you are pushing a welfare package model and the country doesn't need welfare? You collapse the economy.
And that's what happened.
And that's exactly what happened. So people, my followers who've said, what's happened? How is it happening? Well, folks, I mean, you can, I'm not going to say that they unleashed the coronavirus on purpose, but they certainly have been pushing for a socialistic model. And I would say at the very minimum, Casey, that the liberal left took advantage of the COVID apparatus and basically suppressed the U.S. Worker, the U.S. business, and U.S. economy to their advantage for political gain. And the U.S. citizens basically were collapsed on, and it's been catastrophic, and it's not going to be any better. Now, if you recall, when Trump took office, Obama said, you can't create those kind of jobs. It's on record. Go look at it. You can't create those kind of jobs. You're never going to build the economy, blah, blah, blah. I don't know where he was getting his rhetoric from, but again, when you come from a socialist mindset, yeah, you're never going to build an economy. When you come from an entrepreneurial and a capitalist mindset, it's let's get up every day and go build something. I was trained on Wall Street to assume one thing every single day, and I live by this code, that I have no money every day I get up. I assume I have zero in my pocket. I get up and I figure out what to do. It doesn't mean I make money every day. It means I get up and I'm trained to assume I'm broke. I act like I'm broke, and I figure I got to go do something productive for the day.
It's like a small business owner. You
Right.
got to figure out how to make your money that day.
And that's the difference between the socialist model and an entrepreneurial capitalist model. And that's the problem. And that's what's dividing this country today. The elites want to drive a socialist model and a wedge down us, and they want to force feed the population, and a percentage of the population saying, I don't want a feeding tube. I want to basically work. I want to build my business. I want to be entrepreneurial. I want my constitutional rights. I don't want the Constitution to be interpreted as you see it. I want it interpreted the way it was written. And oh, by the way, I had a question from one of our top fans.
Yes.
The Supreme Court is broken. Okay. The Supreme Court is broken because they refuse to hear the most important case, or cases plural, that they're there for. Interpretation of the U.S. Constitution. That's why they're there. Pure and simple. The Supreme Court is for one thing and one thing only: enforcing the U.S. Constitution. Right. If they refuse to hear the case, including the Trump appointees, nobody's immune, then we as a country are in deep, deep trouble, because basically that's one branch of government that is out of action. And that's a problem for us. And I really have a serious issue with that, Casey.
It is. Well, we're going to talk about that in future shows, because we've got about 4 minutes. And, the other point I want to make too is the media has made it sound like the Trump administration, and I'm praising Trump, but I feel like this is what Americans want Republicans to carry on.
That's right.
His legacy. A couple other points here. The bottom 50% of American households saw a 40% increase in net worth. Now, all we hear on the media is the rich have gotten richer and the poor have gotten poorer, and Trump's taken all the money, he gave tax cuts to the rich, and the poor were worse off. Not so at all.
That's right.
And he also brought back more than 1.2 million manufacturing and construction jobs.
Well, and there are more coming, because they won't be realized by the time he's out of office, but they'll be realized in 2021. So
Yes.
The fruit of that labor is always a lagging indicator.
Right.
So for everybody out there, the reality is that the net worth of every American on paper, from a standpoint of what your cost of living is today compared to 4 or 5 years ago,
Right.
is absolutely higher. Your net worth is higher from a cost of living perspective. Interest rates are at all-time lows. Fuel prices are at all-time lows. Housing opportunities are at all-time highs, meaning you can the ability to buy a home or an apartment or a condo is at an all-time high. The stock market, for lack of better terms, is at 30,000, off the chart, record highs. Okay, even while the liberals are trying to tear the economy down, we're still at all-time record highs in this economy across the board.
And I have something to share about that as well. Hourly
Please.
wages. It's some things I looked up before the show. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, when Trump took office in 2017, the average hourly wage for American workers was $26 an hour. It increased to $28.69 by March 2020. And since April, it's dropped below $29.32 and sits at $29.81. It's a 15% increase since 2017, and over 4% in just the last 9 months. And that's with COVID.
That's right. No, it's skilled labor. Okay. And skilled labor is not somebody going to college to get a 4-year degree. Skilled labor is somebody going to a 2-year college and getting a technical degree, whether it's medical, manufacturing, welding, electrical, plumbing. They make over 6 figures a year. People that work on the power plants and pipelines make 6 figures a year. Okay, with overtime. These are high-paying real jobs. In many cases, they make more than white-collar employees. Okay,
right.
So let's be clear.
The
economy is booming from that perspective, and we've put more people into the employment realm from a standpoint of technical jobs
Mhm.
than in history.
We have, and bringing manufacturing jobs is definitely key to that.
Absolutely.
Those are good paying jobs. You don't need a college degree for a lot of those jobs. So again, I think that as Republicans, our Republican Party, we have to hold the elected officials to Trump's legacy of what he was trying to create.
Exactly.
So many people just judged him on his rhetoric instead of what was happening here in America and how much stronger we were getting. Unemployment rates, nobody expected them to become as low as they did.
Well, I mean, remember, again, he was told point blank by the prior
Right.
administration that you'll never do this. You'll never create this many jobs, and he did it. And look, the reality is, if you push the rhetoric back, because he was fighting who?
Everybody.
The liberals, the left, and who did Trump fight more than anybody the first 2 years of his presidency? I want the viewers to hear it. Who did he fight?
Who did he fight the most in the first 2 years?
In Washington.
I was going to say the Republican
The
Party.
Republican
itself.
Party.
Yes.
They were knifing him in the back. So for the first 2 years, Paul Ryan and the
Yes.
liberal rhinos in Washington were the most vile people, and they're ones that were really causing Trump to be essentially held back from really doing more. And they were the ones who essentially set up the roots for the Democrats to then do what? Launch the Russia
Right.
investigation, because they were weakening him in the party. And people, if you don't wake up and understand that the party has been the problem and we got to clean the party out, I'm not sure what we can do, but we're going to keep talking to you.
We absolutely are. And we got about a minute left,
Yeah.
KW. So again, next week, we're going to have Al Moskowitz on, and we're going to talk about COVID, how it's impacted the businesses. There's been so many businesses locally that have been deeply impacted with these COVID closures. And, we're fortunate here in Florida because we've remained open more so than other states.
We
and,
have, yes.
I'm sure, Al, when you come on, you're going to show us some statistics between Florida COVID numbers and states like California that have shut down, the difference in those. So, we're fortunate, but it still has hurt so many of our businesses. And I think of restaurants in particular and the entertainment industry, which is still suffering so deeply.
Oh, it's going to take years to recover. And also, FYI, and I'll give DeSantis credit where credit's due. He's basically told the political pundits, we're not going to turn Florida into a FEMA
We got to go.
COVID camp.
Yes, we got to go. We'll see you next Tuesday starting at
Thanks, guys.
5:05. Al Moskowitz. All right,
All right,
KW,
thanks,
here we
Casey.
go.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for
Wraps
tuning
up
in.
the
We
show this
appreciate it.
evening.